Hello, welcome to another episode of our podcast. I love having really smart people on this podcast, and Vanessa is definitely one of them. Vanessa, I'm not sure if you remember, but the first time I met you, I was actually quite intimidated because you came onto the Billion Dollar Seller Summit. You had a speaking spot, and like
Yeah.
at the time, it wasn't very easy to get that spot. So, like, I know Kevin does a tremendous amount of work to kind of vet the people. And at that time, especially because it was way more exclusive. So, Vanessa, you came on stage, right? And then you shared something with everyone, which is, if you also optimize for Spanish words within your listing, you can start to rank for those terms because there was quite a lot of volume of search. And I was sitting next to one or two people and they searched helium 10 and like, holy crap, that's so true. Like there is quite a
Yeah.
lot of volume. So, and even a few days after, kind of people were saying, okay, I've done that and actually it's working. From
Yeah.
kind of the people I was speaking to. And that was the first time I actually ever heard anyone talking about that. And then after that, everyone was talking about, oh yeah, you should optimize. And I kind of, it came from you. And I remember when you introduced it, it was like that bombshell moment. And I was like, wow, okay, this woman is a force not to be reckoned with. So that was kind of my first experience of you. And then as time went on, I kind of see the content you put on. There's a lot of just very, I don't know, wishy-washy stuff on LinkedIn, but your
Yeah.
posts are straight to the point and it always value. So I'm really excited to have you. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for joining us. Do you want to just give everyone just a bit of an introduction about you and what you're doing right now?
Yeah. So thank you so much for the invite and for the compliment. I feel that that's been my mission in the industry, and the situation of like being the person that discovers or finds something, or out of curiosity start creating content about a topic, and then it becomes mainstream. So that's one thing that I guess is a compliment for the work that I do and all of the things that time that I invest in taking things seriously and making sense out of the mess. So I am the founder and CEO of Online Seller Solutions. It is a troubleshooting agency for Amazon sellers or marketplace sellers. We also work a little bit with Walmart. And then a community ambassador for Carbon 6. So a lot of my work for Carbon 6 is being the spoken person at events and also helping them navigate the intricacies of the platform when it comes to making decisions for next tools, next projects, things like that. So I'm like the in-house Amazon expert. And because of those two roles, I get to spend a lot of time tinkering and playing around with things. My favorite part of my job is just like testing. So I'm like a math scientist, like sitting down, like trying to figure out things. That's my favorite part. And then when I get into something that is interesting, I create content about it. I go to events or join podcasts like this, and then I share my content or my discoveries. And it is so funny because the one that is, I guess, more fresh right now is the Rufus situation. Rufus AI, like Cosmo, and all of those. And I remember that I was one of the first persons speaking about it back in 2023. Then I presented for BDSS again. So I spoke at BDSS in Hawaii and I presented about this. And back in May last year, that was kind of a hypothesis of like, Vanessa is kind of crazy. Like, that is just a completely different universe. That's not going to happen. And now everybody's talking about it. So I'm like, nice. I did my work. That is exactly what I feel my role in this industry is. So yeah, doing a lot of that and focusing on the other part is I like to focus on the things that people overlook. So I call it the unsexy stuff. So algorithms, backend, like platform changes, especially initiative that Amazon has in the back, and really looking into why Amazon did what it did, like why this decision happened and where's it come from. And a lot, I think that our industry lacks that. Everybody wants like the next tip, trick, like sexy hack, but rarely they stop to think about where is Amazon as a company going, and what do we think are the decisions they're gonna make that are gonna impact us. So I do that, and I create content about that.
No, that's amazing. And now we're going to get into the nitty gritty details in a minute. In a minute, but before we get into that, Vanessa, I'd love to know your introduction to e-commerce. What was it about the e-commerce space that made you fall in love with it and go into it? And what was that early stage like for you?
Um, I guess I had brands back when I was living in Venezuela, and I always wanted. So I knew, obviously, I guess because of our age, I know that the internet is where you sell things, right? Like I never thought like, oh, let me go to a store. Like that wasn't never a thought. So I was doing like sales through Instagram, and then I tried to figure out Amazon. I couldn't back then when I was living in Venezuela. Then when I moved to the US, opportunity presented. I started working in the Amazon world. And to me, the moment where I'm like, okay, I'm about to go into a journey that is probably going to be the next chapter of my life, it's when I started playing around with flat files. So it's so funny. It's so funny that I say this, but I remember when I started as an account manager, like I was an e-commerce manager for a brand or a business. Um, and then they had a massive catalog. We're talking about like 8,100 SKUs. Like it was 800,000 SKUs. Sorry,
Wow.
it's like crazy amount of SKUs because it's clothing and accessories and shoes and things. So back then, I was just doing everything manually, and one day I found out about this amazing thing, which is the flat files. And when I opened that, and I spent what I think was hours of work, but it felt like minutes to me, and I experienced that flow. I'm like, yeah, this is it. And it's not, I guess it's not necessarily Amazon. It was never like, I'm going to go into Amazon and I'm going to be an e-commerce expert and I'm going to accomplish these things. It was never about that. It was more about, I found something that got me into the flow, and I will follow this. Like for me, there was no need to keep testing other things. It's like, yeah, I found my thing.
That's interesting, and you are right. There is absolutely nothing attractive about flat files. This is the most unsexy thing ever. It's annoying. There's times when you just want to smash your head against the table with flat files. But
Yeah.
this leads on nicely to my next question, because I think I know the answer to it, but I just want to kind of throw this out at you for those listening. When you're kind of reviewing accounts with your business with online seller solutions, what is the issue you tend to find again and again and again, like a common theme across all accounts you audit?
Mm. Well, unfortunately, the reason why people work with us is because they have problems, right? So they got into a point where there like there is a problem, they cannot solve it. So there is a massive issue. And I think a lot of it is, well, probably the number one reason is that they don't know what's going on Amazon. Like they don't. They just keep making the decisions based on their knowledge that was built on the past. Meaning, this is how we've been doing business for 2 years. How come this is different now? So because they make a specific decision that now the system doesn't allow or doesn't get or doesn't or it creates a restriction somehow, now they have a problem. And a lot of our work is to educate a little bit. It's like, hey guys, this happened because of this and that, because ABC changed. Like you cannot keep doing the things that you were doing before. So and honestly, to a point where sometimes, like at the very beginning when I started, I like the reaction was me rolling my eyes. It's like, oh my god, how do you don't know that this is happening, right? But then the more I, grew the business, start talking to more people. First, when you have a business like Amazon with so many different moving pieces and so many things to think about, Amazon is the least of your concerns. Like sometimes you're like, yeah, I never go to the news page in Seller Central. Like that is not part of the rituals or habits that sellers have. They are reactive. And I understand now why, and I feel that now my role as an educator and a service provider is to hold their hand instead of, like, I guess, judging. Because at the beginning I was judging. It's like, how come? Like, I don't understand. Also at the beginning when I started my agency, I didn't understand. Like, I was surprised that I found a niche that nobody else was in, which is solving unsexy problems. I was shocked. I'm like, nobody else is doing this. It's crazy. But now I know, because everything that it takes, I know how hard it is. So part of it is that. And then the other part is just the lack of vision in how holistic Amazon is. Meaning, you cannot really separate an Amazon account in specific areas. Even though we say, like I say, that yeah, I help with catalog and inventory and account health and brand registry and things like that, those are all the same thing. So when they make a decision in one side, let's say, we're for example, this happens quite often. They have inventory they want to send, but now Amazon is requiring them to send it with the label, right, with the FNSKU label, the Amazon label, instead of the UPC. For some reason, the regulations changed, maybe the type, the product category changed, something happened. So they're like, you know what, we're not going to do that. We don't have the labor to sticker all of our products. We're just going to send it and let Amazon do it. That is probably the worst decision that you can make, because Amazon makes 100 times more mistakes than you could make in the warehouse. So now your inventory is being labeled wrong, right? Amazon is not taking the blame, or is not accountable for that mistake. They're gonna still charge you, and they're gonna request you to do a removal order to take out the inventory that is mislabeled, because now you have a bunch of things like commingle and a bunch of different SKUs in the same bucket or in the same bin. That's a problem, right? So, I mean, that is one, George, of millions of cases that I've seen, or millions of scenarios where it comes back from making a decision that is not aligned with what the system has right now as I guess rules or policies, and the lack of holistically seeing the whole account or system as a piece. And I don't know if this has been your experience. I know that, with clear ads you do a lot of PPC, but sometimes people over focus on the sexy part, which is what you do. And then when something breaks on the other side, on the management and the back end, it's a shock. It's like, what just have happened? And it's like, well, no, you need to oil the machine. Like the same way you put attention to PPC, you need to put attention to the other side. So I think that is the root cause of every single person reaching out to us to solve something.
Yeah, I can see how it can be so reactive, and actually, there's no deep, like there's no depth put into flat files, reading those boring articles that Amazon put up, which are going to be quite essential. But I just want to really break it down, Vanessa, for those listening that might not be ready to use your service outside of Amazon PPC. When you're looking at kind of your catalog, what are some of the steps that they should be doing on a weekly basis, that anyone can do to make sure that they got everything on their end up to scratch? Is there any few top tips you can give?
Yeah. So, as a best practice, the first thing that I'll say is understanding the catalog structure. So, one thing a lot of people don't really know is when you create an ASIN or a SKU in your catalog, the first SKU that you create is the most important SKU. It is what it's called in the catalog world the original SKU that holds the most amount of information for that product. So, as a best practice, you should know which are your original SKUs. And hopefully, you still have your original SKUs. Because if not, then, like, if you stretch it for a long enough amount of time, then you're going to start seeing problems in the catalog. But let's say that you can pinpoint those 5, 10, 50 different original SKUs, and you have something extra, maybe an FBM, or maybe something that was returned and you have it in the sell and regrade program. That's amazing. But the original SKU is important, because you're going to treat those as impossible to delete. Like, you don't delete those. You never delete the original SKU. And every time you want to make changes to that listing, you use the original SKU. Just by doing that, George, I am I am telling you, it will prevent maybe 50% of all of the catalog issues that I see. And
Fascinating.
catalog issues meaning I cannot change my title, I cannot change my pictures. I don't know why Amazon is not putting the in the same order that I want the pictures that I want. Now my listing is suppressed for some reason or something like that. Because you own the content and you own the original SKU, you hold the power to make changes to a catalog. The moment that changes, Amazon start coming in, other people might start like trying to hijack your listing and things like that. So that is extremely important. Then another best practice is to
Before we
have.
move on, this is gold. Just before we move on, question: what if the original SKU was in one marketplace and now you do most of your business in another marketplace, and does that original SKU in the other marketplace still hold that weight?
Yep, that's an amazing question. I love it. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, actually, yes. So the regional SKU is so the requirements to be a regional SKU needs to be the first one in the first marketplace. So the creator of the ASIN. If you created the same product, and maybe sometimes it happens, I see this rarely, but sometimes in the other marketplace Amazon assigns a different ASIN, then that SKU will hold the contributions for that marketplace. But when people have the global listings feature, which is sharing global information across all marketplaces, the original marketplace from the original SKU from the original marketplace will be the one that holds the contributions. And obviously, let's say, for example, my original SKU is in the US, but I'm now expanding to Germany. And in Germany, obviously, the content is in German, right? So you will need to do work of putting the content or the translation or whatever content you want in Germany. But sometimes, let's say that you change tomorrow, you change the, I don't know, the color or the scent or the style or that specific product. You need to change it in the US first and then go to Germany and do it there. You won't be able to change things in Germany. So that's where you need to care dearly for your original SKUs. That is kind of a license that you get of contributions for the catalog. So you need to find it. You need to have them. Sometimes people tell me like, "Oh my god, I created that long time ago. I don't know. I forgot. Like or I didn't know this information, so I deleted those original
So
SKUs."
this is a
Like
question
I
I was
don't.
going to ask you. What do you do if it's
Yes.
deleted?
So what happens in that scenario is, so two things. The Imagine that you are completely oblivious about this information, you don't know anything, so you create one SKU every time you send inventory, which this is a common practice for people that sell consumables. If that's the case, there is one, and you can call seller support. Well, now with the call feature, it's kind of very impossible. You might chat with them or
Yeah.
email them and request information for that, because they are able to tell you, or they're able to see which is the contributor, which is the original, or yeah, the top contributor SKU for that ASIN.
Okay.
So you will open a case and say like, "Hey, Amazon, I have this ASIN and I have 3 different SKUs. I don't know which one is holding the contributions for the catalog." And they might come back and say, "Yeah, it's number 3." And you're like, "Okay, cool." That you will treat it as a holy, thing for the catalog. Like, you don't delete it, you keep building on that SKU. So next time you make a change is on that SKU. And just that SKU. You don't need to change it in every single SKU you have. Actually, that's a terrible practice. That as well. When you have multiple SKUs for the same ASIN, changing information in all of them when you want to make a change, it is terrible, because it is confusing the system on which one is the top contributor, or the one that holds the contributions. One thing that I've seen though is sometimes, let's say you have 3 SKUs in the example, and one holds the contributions for the title, the other one holds the contributions for the third bullet point, and one holds the contributions for the description. That is the people that I work with a lot of the times, because you got to a point that this is a mess now, and now we need to go back to first principles. It's like, okay, we need to pick one, start contributing there, start winning contribution points, because that's one thing that you do. You each SKU, the more obviously the original is, it's kind of the base, right, where that holds information, but after that one you could make one being the winner by contributing to it more. But the original is the one that it will always be your I guess top solid contributor to the catalog.
This is
So
fascinating.
yeah, so the other option, right, is go back. So if you ever had that SKU and you maybe sold it, because that's one thing. Let's say that you deleted 2 years ago, you don't know what the SKU was named, like the taxonomy, the convention, you don't know what you use. Then the only way that I have found a way to find that SKU is if you have ever sold that SKU. So if you had orders coming from that SKU that is not in your inventory anymore, you can find it through the orders report. That's the only way. There is no other way. You cannot find it in the category listing report, and Amazon will never give you that information.
I have some questions. I have like a million questions, but I don't want to interrupt you. That's why. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you then is, what if you started off selling one particular type of product in one category, but then now your products are completely different? Like you might have gone from like kitchen and household to now pet supplements, and that original SKU is within the kitchen category, and now you're on a different.
I mean, that means that you change the category for your product.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that transformation is kind of tricky. Meaning, let's say you sell a bowl, right? So at the beginning you were saying like, oh, this is a dog water bowl, like for dogs or cats or pets, and now you're saying that this is for the home and kitchen, right? Is that the type of transition that you're talking about?
No, I'm just thinking of those who might have started off with Amazon a few years back, and they were just testing the waters, and they're like, oh my goodness, there's some traction here, and they found a product on Alibaba and they started selling it. But now they went, right, I'm really going to think about this, and I'm now going to properly launch on this particular category, and then move into a different category. Does that original ASIN still have that weight with the different product category line? Or not?
No. Remember, or so what I'm talking about with the SKUs and the ASINs, that holds the contribution for that particular SKU and ASIN.
Oh, so on an account level, it's just all on an ASIN level. Okay.
Yeah, correct. On an account level, you have other contribution rights. I call it contribution privilege, because honestly nowadays nothing is a right on Amazon. Like, it's a privilege. We're privileged to be part of the platform. On that account level, obviously the original or the seller or the account that created the SKU will hold the most amount of contributions. And this is one thing that I talk about a lot in content, in my content, is sometimes people come to us with issues that are solved just by updating the content in the main account. So let's say you as an agency or me as an agency, we have secondary user permissions to the account, right? Sometimes when we try to make a change and it's like, okay, this is not going anywhere, like we cannot make this change go through. One thing that we always ask, we never do it, like we never go into the main account, but we always tell our client, it's like, hey, can you try to put this information in the title and click save and finish? And sometimes that makes the trick. right? So yeah, the original creator of the SKU holds also more points. It doesn't mean that only them can change it. It's not that how it works, but it is the most important, right? So in that level, yes, I seen, and this is one question, George, that I get so often with people that are selling their account, or or selling a specific product line or a specific brand within an account. They are like, we want to transfer brand registry to them. And with that transfer of brand registry, you put them as the owner and you add them to the thing and la la la. But unfortunately, the way that the system is built, the way that the Amazon catalog is built, will always see the original SKU and the creator of that SKU as the top contributor. So let's say that I have a brand and I'll sell it to you. And you can start selling in your own account. And I'm not selling my account, I'm just selling my asins, right? You now need to start contributing to those asins. And sometimes when you try to make changes to those asins, you won't be able, because you're new. Don't have the history, you don't have the original SKU, you don't have the power to make the changes to the catalog. So you still are somewhat attached to me. And this is something, if somebody's thinking about selling asins, not complete accounts, this will be a period where the buyer might require access to your account, or at least access to uploading content through your account, so things get changed, because the original SKU is not transferable. And I know this because I spent a lot of time trying to figure it out for an aggregator that wanted to make this happen. And Amazon said, like, yeah, that's not possible. Like, the only way that this happens is that we work a tailor specific solution for you, and that will take months and months and months. So for a regular person, not an aggregator top, seller in the world, you are pretty much need to play by the rules of regular catalog stuff, and make changes slowly, and eventually we'll get there. Eventually the new account will hold contribution rights, but it takes time.
This is gold, Vanessa. I'm really enjoying this. So thank you. And we focused so much on finding the original SKU, and I felt like I interrupted you, and you had a few other golden gems to share. So outside of finding the original SKU, and you've gone into detail of why it's important and how to find it, what would be the next few other things that ecom brand owners can do to ensure that they got everything in their house in order?
Yeah. I think a lot of it also comes from the inventory side of things. So making sure you understand what's your inventory flow and what's the state of your inventory. We get a lot of issues, or a lot of people coming to us because they have um, inventory that is stuck, that is not that they cannot sell, or when people try to buy, it takes like 2 weeks to get it. Like, that is when the state of the inventory in a specific warehouse has gone wrong. And it's unfortunate, because the only way to diagnose this is by having the issue, honestly, unless you are really on top of your fulfillment and really understand your levels of inventory and how much you're sending and how fast you're selling. Like, that kind of delta of, like, how much I'm sending, how much I'm selling, how fast, so you can keep a healthy amount. Because the moment where, so for example, some things or some SKUs become stagnant, that they're not selling, or things are seasonal, or stuff like that, Amazon will start putting those in secondary fulfillment centers, or sorry, it's called complementary fulfillment centers. They're not the main fulfillment center, they're complementary, meaning they fulfill the fulfillment center, right? And when that happens, and you get serious of, like, oh, this is now my season, now I'm gonna sell, taking inventory out of the secondary fulfillment center takes time. And I'm not talking about AWD, by the way. This is within the FBA network. So that's one thing, making sure that you understand your cycles and where your inventory is sitting. So Amazon tells you what are the warehouses where your inventory is sitting, and there is also public record of what those warehouses, where they are and what are they, like if this is a secondary, a complementary, or if this is the main fulfillment, or if this is a distribution center. So you kind of know if you have inventory stock. And it's funny because even the best, like, number one sellers, like, I've seen how they always keep like a buffer, or a thing of like 100 units. There's always 100 units, at least 100, at least 100, all the time, all the time, all the time. And they're not circling those 100, they're just stuck in a fulfillment. So then when a peak comes, they run out of the circling inventory, and those 100 cannot be moved because they're in a complementary warehouse. So again, I feel that this is probably one case for the inventory to go wrong, probably a rare one. But my point is, understand the cycle of your SKUs on a SKU level, because that is important, and then figure out if your inventory is properly, I guess, represented within the network. Like, if it's things, because sometimes people spend, or SKUs spend a lot of time in the transfer, FC transfer status. FC transfer status is funny because for us in Seller Central, it's just one thing. But in the back end, FC transfer could be, I think, 5 or 7 different things. It could mean different things in the back end. So if you don't know what's happening, then you get to a point where you might have a problem. And then the last thing that I'll say, it comes from the compliance world. Compliance is now every day changing. It is very strict nowadays on Amazon, and it takes a lot to understand what's going on. And I feel that obviously one of the best ways is to keep being educated and connected to what's happening with Amazon. But a lot of the times, Amazon doesn't really tell you that they now restrict the word, I don't know, hypoallergenic for listings, and you cannot advertise, and you're not showing up for the results, right? They're not sending out emails or putting out news about this. They just change it. And that's it. That's part of the game. That's the game you're playing. So you need to be very I guess, strategic, if that's a word for this context, maybe. Um, when it comes to a restriction, really understand what the root cause is. And that comes from the compliance. Understanding that, okay, maybe hypoallergenic now is a term that, if it's used incorrectly, it can lead to liability for Amazon, which is ultimately what they want to prevent when they enforce compliance. They don't want things to fire back to them of somebody that got hurt or got sick, or something happened to them, so they sue Amazon. So that's why they're protecting this. I see it every single day in the supplements category. Like, God bless the guys that decided to be in the supplements categories, really, because the level of compliance complexity that comes every time because Amazon is flagging something, is not allowing this specific keyword, it is insane. And one thing that it's just a fresh case. I knew this, but it's always, every time that happens, it's just like, oh my God, this is so important. Back to the question that you asked me at the beginning, what if the contributions coming from another marketplace? This happens a lot. One thing, another trick, it's not outside of compliance, it has to be more with the catalog. Make sure that every so often you do the work as a private investigator to go to every single Amazon marketplace and look for your ASIN and try to find it. Because sometimes, and this is a recent case that we work on, sometimes Amazon just decides to create that ASIN. So in this case, the example, this seller had a restricted product because it was flagged as an adult, but the flag for the adult category was in Belgium, which is one of the newest marketplaces, I believe, or one of the little ones in Europe, at least. and they are not selling in Belgium. They don't sell in Belgium, but Amazon created the ASIN. And because of the keywords that were translated, I guess, to French, now there is a flag in the restriction, and their sales in the US were being impacted. So this is where the system becomes super complex, and why I said at the beginning, start thinking about it more holistically. Everything is interconnected. So have a VA or somebody do the work of going to every single marketplace, look for your ASIN. And if it's there, then ask yourself, like, did we create it there or somebody else did? Because if the answer is somebody else, you might eventually encounter errors in the catalog in things like your original marketplace. So that's where, this is a whole mess of unsexy stuff.
Okay, so Vanessa, compliance. So I want to pick your brain here. Like, as an average Joe, average seller, what are some of the steps that they could take to be proactive, to keep up to date with compliance, and make sure that they are safeguarding their brand?
That's a great question, and I don't think I have an answer that will satisfy the proactiveness of compliance. Unfortunately, um, there is, besides. So this is one thing, and we consulted a brand on this. Massive catalog, massive, a lot of supplements, a lot of personal care, and they said to us, we don't want to deal with this anymore, because they had a few restrictions that have cost them a lot, like six figures in revenue, like in less than 2 weeks, like crazy amount of money. So they're like, we're done with this. Like, we want to prevent everything. Like, we want to do the work to prevent it. And a lot of the prevention comes from literally making your listing kind of like written for a kid, for 3-year-old kid, meaning you avoid every single word that might talk about a specific medical claim or disease or a hormone or things like that. But then when I said that to them, they like, if you want to get rid of the pain of being restricted for something like this, for in a compliance level, you need to remove everything. And then they're like, well, but if we remove everything, we're not going to sell, because those are the keywords that sell. So this is a trade-off of risk tolerance, or you need to be risk tolerance if you are selling in these categories, because there is no proactive way to do it unless you literally change the whole content and make it so kosher that Amazon will never shut you down. But that means that you're missing out on the search and the volume for things that are important to your customers, right? So in that way, I don't think, I mean, that is the way. That is the way. If you want to prevent it, just remove all of the claims. But I don't think you want to do that. So the other part is just, I guess, I want to say this, and also I feel it sounds horrible, but follow me on LinkedIn, right? Like, I create a lot of content for this compliance part, and a lot of the things that I say, it's because of the things that we have seen over and over and over again. So I guess that's the only option, George. Like, I don't know if
Okay.
I'm missing something in that sense, but Amazon is not a proactive platform. It's a reactive one. The system is built for reaction, not for proactiveness.
Okay, so you've already given some really good insights of what to do when something happens. So let's just say one of your listings is being restricted, it's being constrained in some way, right? You said,
Mhm.
have a VA, just proactively look at every marketplace to see, did you create the listing or was it someone else? So that's one really useful insight. Is there any other process that you can share with everyone of what they should do? So obviously follow you as well. Your content's always got some up to date stuff going, which is great. But like, is there any other step by step guides that people should look to do when they notice that, okay, this particular ASIN of mine has been restricted, sales have dropped? Where should they go to diagnose that ASIN?
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, I was gonna about to miss the most probably important um, maintenance backend trick that you can do is download the category listing report. and I can, like, this is probably the phrase that I have mentioned the most throughout my whole, career in the industry, is just download the category listing report. That is a Excel flat file that Amazon will give you with all of your catalog information, and that information comes from you. You will never see, let's say Amazon changed your title. If you download the category listing report at that moment when the title changed, you won't see the title that Amazon put in your listing. You will see the one that you added. So again, the category listing report represents the information that you have input into your catalog, right? So that is the first thing, just as a preventive measure. You always need to have your most updated category listing report and save that. Another part is like you can upload that and make sure that every contribution is fresh and so on, but we're not going to get there. Getting into the diagnosis of what's happening to an ASIN. Let's say that it depends on what's the restriction. Let's talk about the one where you cannot advertise, right? And normally when something happens where you cannot advertise, means that there is a claim within the listing somewhere, or maybe in your ads, that are talking about something that is restricted, right? So for example, I don't know, alcohol or drinking. I see this a lot in things like hangover recovery. Like in that category, I have had a few people in that category come in because, oh, we cannot advertise because Amazon is saying that we promote alcohol consumption. And it's like, okay, let's go back, review. So first thing is review, get the notice of what happened to your listing. You normally have something in the performance notifications, something got into your email, or if you have absolutely no clue of what's going on, you open a case and you ask, right? And this is one thing that I'll mention. When you ask, if the answer doesn't make sense, which it's a lot of the times,
Yeah.
don't settle for that answer. So it's funny because the other day, Isabella reached out to me and said, like, Vanessa, Amazon is making these crazy things, like I cannot do this or that, and they're saying that there's nothing to do. And I'm like, no, this is just a glitch. Like, you need to contact the ad support and stuff and stuff. And then she did it, and it worked. So that's one thing. If you find an answer that is not sufficient, that's not the answer. Okay, very important. And you need to be very, I guess, stubborn with that, because there is an answer. There is always an answer. So in that case, on the hangover patches, they're saying that you have in your A plus content, you have a keyword for party and alcohol, and then you have a bunch of people partying, and that is promoting the consumption of alcohol, which that's a level of sophistication that Amazon is or that Amazon has right now when analyzing listings. It's not only keywords, it's things like images and context within your images. So if that's the case, now that you know, because either the reps from the advertising support told you that's the case, or they told you like, yeah, it's because of the promotion of this or that, then you need to review your ASIN and remove that. You need to remove everything that is there. And I know this is probably the most painful part of the process, because this is where I guess the imagination of the entrepreneur or the seller comes in. Is like, how can I convey the exact same message with different keywords, right? So at the beginning, I remember in the moment where Amazon started restricting like eco-friendly you know things that were like eco-friendly, those type of like uh, recyclable and things like that, hypoallergenic, all of that, people started putting into their listing planet friendly. So then planet friendly go away, and then they put like green friendly, and then there's iteration after iteration of the exact same meaning but with a different word that the system still haven't caught. So, doing the work of rewriting your listing and then applying for it again through a case. You need to, most of the times, these type of restrictions require you to do a case to lift the restriction. Like changing the information in the listing is not enough. So yeah, I think that's how you will diagnose the issue and also solve it. Yeah, unfortunately, for a lot of it, you will need the help or the guidance from seller support.
Okay. Um, I want to kind of move the conversation a little bit because you seem like you're always up to scratch with what's going on, the latest thing going on. In 2025, there's so many things going on. What would you recommend people do to keep up with all of the updates with Rufus and AI? Is there any practical things that people could be doing within their account?
Oh my God, yes. Yes, I was hoping to get to this part of the conversation. Um, Listen, first of all, and I was talking to somebody yesterday about it. It is important, and I believe it's important because up to right now, I just have given you tactical approaches to solve things. Maybe in 3 years from now, or 6 months, or 1 month, we don't know. Everything that I just said is completely useless. Maybe because that's something that's coming, and I don't know when it's gonna happen. But something in the flat file world is changing, and now that's done with AI and things like that. So that's extremely scary for a lot of reasons because AI makes mistakes. I'm still super excited. I want to see what's coming because for a lot of people that would be kind of like rocket science. Imagine putting flat files and AI together. That's just insane. um, but on the Rufus part, this is a shift in the world. Like, this is not Amazon with an AI bot. No, 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 this is a whole global shift that's happening around AI. And what is behind that change is people are getting more comfortable and gonna start using AI for everything in their lives. The same way the internet became basically a human right, like essential for us to have I guess a good life. I don't know if that's proper to say, but if to be connected, you need the internet, right? In the future we might be able to say the exact same thing for with AI. It's like, to be connected we need AI. AI is the foundation of our world. So because of that, these things are happening. One thing that I challenge everybody to start thinking about, or being more open to the idea, is that this is the new reality and you need to start playing this game. With AI, things will become multi-dimensional, multimodal games. And I always like to think about this like Amazon is a game. You're playing this game. You decided to play this game to have a business on Amazon. So what you find, or the goal for you, is to win the game. And for that, you need to understand the rules and start playing. The AI adds a layer to this game of complexity that is really intricate because they have four different elements. You have consumer intent and behavior, which is everything that Amazon knows about your customers and how they give answers or options based on that, which is different. It might be very different if we search for the same thing. Your results will be different from the ones that I get because of this piece. Like, it is a tailored experience. It's a personalized shopping experience. Then you have the catalog information. So until now, we have built listings based on keyword research and keyword volume and where we want to win for organic, and where we are like spending PPC and things like that. And I think, as you know, a lot of that is shifting to the audience intent and what is that the audience is looking for, and specific tailor to that. So in the world of this AI shift, creating content will be for semantic purposes, meaning adding context to your listing, to your product. For example, you have a dress. if you have a dress, you will say like, well, this dress is to go to the beach and to have a date night or to walk around the park. Those type of things that before were not important, just because that is not a keyword that has enough volume for me to waste 50 characters in it, right? But right now that is important because it gives context to the AI bot to say, this is a perfect fit for somebody that is going to Florida on a trip. This is the perfect dress, right? So that is what we want. We want to build context, right? And the third part is the advertising piece. I think advertising, and probably you can say more about this than I do, or that I can, um, is shifting the difference between the PPC pay per click keyword world that we used to have before. It's kind of like merging with this audience level advertising, which is not new at all in e-commerce, by the way. It's new for Amazon, but it's not new for all of the other marketers in the world. They have been doing this for years and years and years. So that is the kind of the three pieces of the shift. So my, I guess, advice is to start thinking about, this is happening, understanding that you cannot fight it, because for a lot at the beginning when I started talking about it, everybody was like, you're just talking, you know, not like, this is not true type of thing, or you need to give us things that are like useful. This is not useful. And I'm like, well, I think it is useful if you start thinking about your strategy in the future. But that is one thing that is happening. So rethinking your whole launching, I guess, optimization strategy tailored to these changes, because they will become the priority for Amazon and for the algorithm to rank and for customers to discover products. And I don't know if I answered that question, but
No, and I've got a really good example of that. So there was so we use an SEO tool called Ahref just to see what kind of questions people ask around certain products. And there was one of our clients' products sells nail polish, right? And then one of the biggest, when we put nail polish into the search bar, one of the biggest questions that was asked is how to remove nail polish, easiest way to remove nail polish. So that within itself got about 30,000 searches a month. So taking that information, we included an infographic of, this is an easy to remove nail polish remover. And then, within the question and answers, we made sure that they were answered. Those questions were met and answered. So I can see what you're coming from here now, like providing context to the product, making sure that it's really fleshed out. Because you're right, we're moving more from just searching for a product to now asking more questions, and allowing Rufus to kind of answer those questions. This has been really, really insightful, Vanessa. The last question I want to ask you is there anything that you think we should have discussed during this podcast that we missed that you think is really important for people to know?
Yeah, I was just gonna wanted to say one last thing about the previous topic on AI. And I like to compare this to historical things that have happened. But remember when back in the day, I guess that's probably not my or our generations, probably our parents' generation, where they wanted to learn about something and they needed to go to a library, find a book,
Yeah.
try to like read through the book to find really the answer, right? Like that was the way to answer how to remove nail polish, right? It's like you need to go to a library and get the book, or you need to ask to somebody that is older than you that may know the answer, but it's kind of difficult. Then the internet came, and now you just type on Google how to remove things, and now you get a YouTube video, and then you get the answer. So we're shifting to that. By the time when you have the I guess the question, and then you go to Google, you already know what you want. And this is something that I talk at the event. I don't know if you saw my presentation in London. I talk about this, where before people were seeking information. They were seeking information in Google or search bars or search engines like Amazon. They were seeking that, or seeking solutions to their problem. But they already knew the problem. They already did the discovery of, okay, I need gel nail removal. Like I know that I need that, so I'm looking for it, I'm seeking it. With AI, we are being served. Like the information is served to you even before you know that you need it. So in the case of somebody that is using gel nail polish, they will say like, oh yeah, I'm buying this, I just got my nails done, it's so pretty, blah blah blah. Or the AI knows somehow, and then it's like, I need to remove it, right? Back now at that point where they need to remove it, the system, the AI will serve them with the solution and the product. And that is what's changing from the model that we now have, or we know, which is going to Google and find for the thing. Because sometimes you might be doing the discovery part on Google because you still don't know what's the solution to your problem. AI knows the solution to your problem and it will serve it to you. So that is the part where this is the shift. This is where, if you understand that that's happening, your next question, or what you should be thinking about, is how are you serving your customers based on the main triggers to buy your product. And I talk a lot, I guess this could be another podcast about audiences, but people don't really know who their audience is, nor they know what is the signal, what is the trigger, or what happens in the life of their customer that makes them buy the product. So, for example, in the gel or the nail polish removal, they need to know that, well, she got the nails done or he got the nails done. So that is the trigger, right? Like you want to remove it. But this is not for everybody, because a lot of people, if you ask that seller, who's your target audience, they will say like, oh, women between 15 and 35 that get the nails done in the salon, but they want to remove it in their house because they're very busy, something like that. It's like, yeah, maybe ultimately that's your demographic, but the reality is the people that want to remove it, right? Like that is what's happened to your audience, that they want to do that. Or maybe it's the people that work at the salon and want to, buy supplies for that. So those are completely different frameworks to think about product development, or product optimization, I should say, that we are completely or not trained to do, because that's not the way that we have done it for so long. So yeah, it's interesting times to be in this industry.
I'm excited. This is great. And just so you guys are listening, it's Vanessa Hung. You have to follow her on LinkedIn. She's always got gold position. So, as well as connecting with you on LinkedIn, Vanessa, what are some other ways people can reach out to you?
Sure. So, social media, yeah, LinkedIn is my favorite. I'm on Instagram as well. It's Vanessa Hung. Email Vanessa at Online Seller Solutions. That is the place. Like, if you want to nerd out about problems or algorithms or things like that, that is the place. And the website for the agency is Online Seller Solutions. And of course, make sure to check out the Carbon 6 website for all of the solutions that we have for e-commerce sellers. And one thing that I'm very excited about, we're starting like a series of community calls within Carbon 6, and that's going to be fun because it's going to be like very interesting topics, and we're going to make these virtual events, virtual webinars. Yeah, it's going to be very exciting, so stay tuned for that.
Perfect. And it's onlinesellersolutions.com.
.com, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, just wanted to confirm. Vanessa, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know to all the listeners, they probably they appreciate what you've done. Thank you for joining us. And for those listening, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.